Wow, did you ever think that what might be seemingly insignificant leftover food scraps that we humans unknowingly leave behind after a quick bite on the go could actually be a massive, bountiful feast to other creatures like ants? This week, I was able to watch the most amazing process of how a wild ant colony brings home a bunch of breadcrumbs left laying around in my yard. And the ants I watched weren't just any wild ant colony. These were marauder ants, undisputedly some of the coolest ants on the planet, with their huge-sized specialized majors and super majors all working together. Watching these ants launch a mass operation of survival to bring home huge boulder-sized breadcrumbs back to their nest was nothing short of a spectacle that you guys will truly love. Now, I've shot many ants in the past on this channel, but this has to be one of my favorite and most satisfying videos I've ever shot, featuring wild ants just doing their thing as nature intended. AC family, it's time to shrink down to ant size and marvel at the amazing process of how ants bring home the bacon, breadcrumbs, here on the Ants Canada Ant Channel. Subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy! Today, I'm going to be your tour guide at the deconstruction site that is this small plot of ground in my yard we here on the channel call Antopia. There's actually something very special and significant about this very spot in my yard where I discovered these marauder ants collecting the breadcrumbs. But I'll be getting more into why this spot is so special and significant later in the video. But if you're like me, you may find ants extremely relaxing, and watching them dissect the breadcrumbs is quite satisfying. So, if you've had a stressful week, let these ants soothe your mind and take you to a new and amazing world. I'll also be needing your opinions on something, and will be asking you a very important question regarding this epic ant colony. So do keep on watching until the end for all that. Now let's start at the breadcrumbs. These breadcrumbs were left behind by one of the workers working on our ant house, which, by the way, as an update, is at the finishing work stage now. We're painting walls and installing things in, and it shouldn't be long before we finally get to stock our ant room. If you're new to the channel, this ant house will be the future home which will house all our resident ant colonies and beasts on the channel. We've called the almost half-hectare plot of tropical landscape on which the ant house is being built Antopia. And as you will see in this video, it's home to many, many amazing wild ant colonies, like the marauder ants. Look at them, just slicing out chunks of breadcrumbs and carrying these chunks back to the main nest, which I'll be showing you guys later. But if you're new to ants, what makes these marauder ants so special in the ant world is how amazingly polymorphic they are. What this basically means is that their worker caste comes in varying sizes and body shapes, which brings us now to Exhibit A, a marauder ant major. Ha! These girls are the literal tanks of the colony. Look at her. The size difference is just staggering, isn't it? Now this is just a major. Wait until you see the next size up from her, i.e. the super majors, coming later in the video. These majors are fully equipped with massive heads, all jam-packed with muscle. It's no surprise, therefore, that these menacing major worker ants specialize in cutting things open and defense. They're essentially the colony's amped-up jaw force. Check out this smaller major as she climbs the breadcrumb, goes in to slice out a chunk using her enormous jaw strength, and extracted. She leaves to bring the chunk back home, and not a few seconds later, another major arrives on the scene to do the exact same thing and help with breadcrumb dissection. Now, if the majors aren't helping with slicing and dicing, they're assuming their alternate role as colony defenders. This entire process of breaking down the breadcrumbs into smaller pieces to be carried home is an open invitation to other animals who might want to steal the food or possibly eat the ants, though the ants themselves can blend in well with the soil. these little bright yellow breadcrumbs sprawling across the ground as the ants take them home, as you can see, are very visible to the sharp eyes of birds. It's why having these major guards hanging around is completely necessary, especially for the larger breadcrumbs, just to ensure the colony's safety. But the large majors themselves are also quite conspicuous to predators. So the smaller workers often ride the majors to protect them. As you can see here, these majors are resource expensive for the colony to create, so they must be protected from predators as well. Now the last thing about these majors is that they also are super strong. Not sure why this major is doing this, but I spotted a major carrying a breadcrumb and placing it onto a larger breadcrumb. Why it did that, I'm not sure, but I'll trust the ants know what they're doing. Now like I said, these majors are actually small. Wait until you see the super majors coming soon. But the large majors and extra large super majors aren't the only cool members of the colony. The regular sized worker ants are just as cool. Don't underestimate their strength and vigor. Watching the workers slice out their bite-sized chunks from the breadcrumbs to take back to the nest was pretty awesome. They each rushed back to the nest, carrying their prized chunks of bread in their mouths. Now on a micro scale, this might seem slow and inefficient, but when you take into consideration that hundreds of thousands of ants are all cooperating to bring home the bread bit by bit, it's easier to imagine how the ants completely process each and every giant breadcrumb within a matter of minutes. But there were sometimes groups of ants who believed that teamwork makes the dream work. Here and there, I did see ants with a cooperative state of mind. Eventually, with enough coordination, the ants managed to move mountains. This helpful major has the right idea. Regardless, lugging these huge pieces of breadcrumbs can't be easy. Based on what I could tell, the ants cooperatively carrying back the smaller mid-sized chunks had the most success. The larger chunks were also more likely to get snagged by debris and obstacles, like roots and twigs. These ants here will have no other choice but pursue the dissection method to completely bring this breadcrumb home. Regardless of how the job gets done, this task of bringing home the food requires an incredible amount of coordination, and ants essentially being on the same page. If these were humans, there would be an engineer on site, perhaps a foreman. The disassembly of the huge breadcrumbs would require a team to work out the logistics and formulate an effective plan of deconstruction. It would involve all members of the team following some kind of instructional execution, because you can't have all members just doing whatever they feel like doing and expect things to run smoothly and efficiently. And that, AC family, is where the magic of ant communication comes in. So get this. Ants communicate almost exclusively through pheromones, biochemicals wafted in the area and laid on the ground, which communicate different messages. These varying messages are always traveling through the swarm day in and day out. The first ant that discovered these breadcrumbs laying around ran back home, leaving an "I found food" pheromone all the way back, and it attracted the swarms of colony members out to help process the food. Then when on site, the ants make certain micro choices like, "Let's chop this food up, girls." Other ants make other choices like, "Let's bring home entire chunks." As these individual ants make such choices, they release a specific pheromone message inviting other ants to join in on their campaign and follow along. An ant smelling such pheromones can decide to join in on a campaign. It feels the most worthy of its effort and time, and also releases that corresponding pheromone, kind of like a retweet. As a result, on a macro level, some campaign options become much more profound than others, and they trend. So these pheromones are also much stronger. In this way, all major ant colony decisions involve a sort of democracy system, where majority idea ends up winning the vote of the majority of the ants. And it seems the majority of these ants feel bringing the breadcrumbs in little individual broken off pieces is the best way. It's the trending way. And now, EC family, prepare for a surprise reveal. Wait for it. Voila! There she is! a super major, the largest worker caste. She's a bit shy and tries to hide from our cameras. Weirdly enough, I find many super majors to be the most cowardly ants of the colony. Not sure why that is, but there she goes, disappearing from the scene. Perhaps these largest super majors are not so much for defense and are more for chopping up food and moving heavy things. And now I see, family, let me show you where all these ants are bringing the breadcrumbs. The massive swarm trailed all the way up to a nearby hole under a rock. It was truly majestic to watch it all. Amazing to know that all these ants were living in a deep cavern below this rock. Now at the start of the video, I mentioned I'd be needing your help and asking you all a question regarding this ant colony. And it's this. I've been wanting to start a colony of marauder ants again. I've owned them in the past, and if you're an OG, you remember the Titans. Sadly, I had to release them back into the wild in 2020 during the height of the pandemic, when I had to downsize my ant collection due to lack of insect feeders. But when we move to Antopia and into the ant house, keeping these ants will become a possibility again. I now breed my own feeders, and having an untouched forest at the back of Antopia will ensure I have a pretty much endless supply of insects to feed them. What do you think? Perhaps I wouldn't collect this particular colony though, because of this next really cool thing I'm about to share with you now. Remember how at the start of the video I mentioned this location where the ants are feeding and nesting is special and very significant? Well, I'm happy to share that this area happens to be just a few steps away from the old fire ant nest that we exterminated by boiling water in a previous video. This is amazing news because fire ants are invasive and threaten a local ecosystem. And the whole aim of exterminating the fire ants in the first place was to help bring back and strengthen the populations of native ant species in Antopia, who are in constant war with invasive ants like fire ants. And the fact that these marauder ants were now seen nesting and roaming that old fire ant territory fills my heart with so much joy. It means the native ant populations are returning to Antopia, and a good indication that pouring boiling water on all other fire ant nests is effective. Overall, watching the marauder ants and truly getting a chance to admire how incredible their lives are in something as simple as bringing breadcrumbs back to their nest has truly opened my eyes at just how beautiful and perfect nature is. Many consider ant colonies to be superorganisms, where instead of thinking of each ant as an individual, it seems the entire colony displays characteristics and operates more like one single organism. One big animal, where each ant is kind of like a cell, with its specific job and purpose, all working towards the greater good of the whole. After seeing what we saw today, and after years of keeping ants, I believe I agree with this idea. I find Mother Nature, time after time, seems to leave us little breadcrumbs, luring us to further discover her major brilliance. Thank you all for watching and supporting the ants. It's Ant Love forever.